This video is to review subjects, verbs, objects, and complements to retake a quiz for the skinny version of English 1. First, let's review some of the simple sentence structures we'll see. Subject, action verb, such as bunnies hop, or frogs jump, or trees grow. Not all action verbs require an object or take an object. The second type, subject, action verb, direct object. The pitcher throws the ball. Pat ate steak. Beatrice loves Ben. These objects answer the question what or who from the verb. What did the pitcher throw? What did Pat eat? Who does Beatrice love? Other than action verbs, there are also linking verbs. And these are words like is, are, was, were, or the 5 senses, or a couple of others that connect a subject to a description of that subject. They can connect nouns like a sphere to a subject. They can connect adjectives like delicious, or even pronouns. So remember that action verbs are linked to direct objects, or connected to direct objects. And when you see linking verbs like is or looks, it connects a description of the subject back to the subject. That description is called the subject complement. And let's add to that subject verb direct object an indirect object, or the recipient of that direct object. So when he gave me a compliment, the compliment was given to me. Bob taught Gary math. What did Bob teach? Math, that's the direct object. And Gary is the recipient of that teaching. Indira bought her friend flowers. What did she buy? Flowers. Who did she buy them for? Her friend. That's the indirect object. So let's go through a few definitions. The subject is who or what the sentence is about. The direct object receives the direct action of the verb. The indirect object is the recipient of the direct object. A concrete noun names an object that occupies space or can be recognized by any of the senses. An abstract noun names an idea, quality, emotion, concept, or event. So as we go through these next examples, we're going to label the nouns as either the subject, S, the direct object, DO, or the indirect object, IO. Daniel's integrity cannot be questioned. Integrity is the noun that serves as the subject of that sentence. Claire's new bicycle impressed her neighbors. Bicycle is the subject of that sentence. Neighbors is the direct object. Who the bicycle impressed. Uncle Rico, a proper noun, is the subject of this sentence. The recipe is the direct object. What Uncle Rico will provide. Students is the subject of this sentence. Problems is the direct object, or what the students have solved. Boss is the subject. Audience is the subject. Movie is the direct object. Bakery is the subject. Cookies are the direct object. Harry Potter is the subject. Imagination is the direct object. Notice we don't include these adjectives like my or the best chocolate chip. And notice that some sentences have direct objects and some do not. Also worth mentioning, imagination is an abstract noun, the rest are concrete, other than integrity, the other abstract noun from this section. Cows, the subject of that sentence, provide us milk. So milk is the direct object, and us is the indirect object. That's the recipient of that object, who receives the milk. Summer is the subject. Parrot is the subject. Birdseed is the direct object. Rabbits is the subject. Class is the subject. Homework is the direct object. That answers what the class dreaded. Man is the subject. Letter is the direct object. That's what the tall man wrote. And who did he write the letter to? That's Susan, the indirect object, or the recipient of the letter. Family is the subject. Holiday is the direct object. And notice that holiday is an abstract noun. Summer also is an abstract noun. Show is the subject. Johnny's, because it has that apostrophe, is describing show. And who does the show bore? His sister. That's the direct object of that verb, bores. Dogs is the subject, and bark does not have an object. Loudly is an adverb describing how the dog barked. Athlete is the subject. The and talented merely describe athlete. Signs is our verb, and what does the talented athlete sign? Autographs, or the direct object of that verb. Teacher is the subject. The gold star is the direct object. That is what the teacher gave. And who did the teacher give it to? That's me, an indirect object. Cat is the subject. Warmth is the direct object. And warmth is an abstract noun. Neighbors brought cupcakes, the direct object, to her. That's the indirect object. Happiness has left the building. Happiness is the subject. Building is the direct object. Happiness is also an abstract noun. Sweater is the subject of this sentence. Because of the apostrophe there, Jill's is showing possession. And what did the old sweater fit, or who did the old sweater fit? The puppy, which is the direct object. Movie is the subject. Zombies is the direct object. Chef is the subject. Meal is what the chef cooked, so that's the direct object. And who received the meal, that would be John. If you mix this up, then the chef would be cooking John, and nobody wants that. The next one, leaders, is the subject. And morale answers the question, what they destroy, or the direct object. You could argue that morale is an abstract noun. Charity is the subject, and that is also abstract, because we're talking about, donating money, not someone named Charity. And the candidates is the direct object of that verb. Pony is the subject. The fence is the direct object. Machine, or if you wanted to call it a compound noun, you could say copy machine, is the subject. Principal is the subject. What did the principal write? A letter, that's the direct object. Who received the letter? The parents, that's the indirect object. Notice Patrick's is describing the parents, and A. Stern is describing the letter. Man is the subject. Bowling ball is the direct object. Iguanas is the subject. And notice today is not a direct object. That is an adverb describing when the iguanas did not move. A pack is the subject. Notice this prepositional phrase of wild dogs describes the pack. Bit the sofas, that's a direct object. And they did this with ferocity, which is an abstract noun. Majority is the subject. Notice this prepositional phrase of us describes majority. And what do the majority avoid? Work. That is the direct object. Snake is the subject. And because of this preposition across, there is no direct object. Cousins, subject. Birthday, direct object. And birthday is another abstract noun. In this next section, we are underlining the verbs, objects, and complements, and distinguishing whether a verb is an action verb or a linking verb. Then for objects, we are determining whether they are direct or indirect. And for complements, we are labeling when they are subject complements. So horses gallop, Peter passed, the man chose, and our friend chose. Those are all action verbs. And gas, me, and freedom are the objects of those verbs, or the direct object. She stumbled, that's an action verb, so our passed and gave. But here, what did Johnny pass? The ball. And who did he pass it to? Me. The recipient of the direct object is the indirect object. What did Priscilla give? Her pen. Who did she give it to? Bill. The recipient of the direct object is the indirect object. In these next two examples, looked and is are both linking verbs, and they connect what's called a subject complement back to the subject, because depressed describes how Bonnie looked, and a criminal describes Naomi. Same thing for 10, a linking verb, and subject complements can also be pronouns. Rainbows shine brightly, but brightly is merely an adverb, so shine is an action verb, but there is no object. Horace lights, action verb, fires, direct object. Patrick likes, action verb, her, direct object. My brother loves, action verb, democracy, an abstract direct object. Damar choked, an action verb, and there is no object. Kyle threw, an action verb, the ball, the direct object of that verb, to Kawhi, the indirect object. Pascal offered, action verb, hope, that's the direct object, what Pascal offered, to the fans, indirect object. Serge smells, linking verb, funny, a subject complement describing Serge. Danny is and Mark is, both linking verbs, a goofball and ours. Both of those are subject complements that go back to and describe the subject. So let's go over the quiz, the first version anyway. The retake will look very similar. The subject is who or what the sentence is about. The direct object receives the direct action of the verb. Indirect object is the recipient of the direct object. Hint, one object will never be indirect. Action verb expresses physical or mental action. A linking verb connects a subject to a description. Examples of linking verbs is, are, was, were, looks, becomes, smells, etc. And the subject complement is the adjective, noun, or pronoun that follows a linking verb. John's favorite chef shared a recipe. Chef is actually the subject here. Favorite and John's are both adjectives, so chef was the subject. The direct object answers what the chef shared, which was recipe. The indirect object would be the recipient of that recipe. It doesn't say, for example, John's favorite chef gave me a recipe or something like that. Instead, the correct answer, there is no indirect object. For sentence B, the verb in sentence B is an action verb, threw. The direct object is the ball, that is what Patrick threw. And the indirect object is me, the recipient of the ball. For sentence C, Horace became thirsty by the afternoon. Horace is the subject, and became is a linking verb. It describes the description of thirsty, or it links the description of thirsty to the subject, Horace, which extends to number 9, that the word thirsty is the subject complement, as Horace became thirsty. Sentence D, my horses galloped quickly. The subject is horses. My is functioning as an adjective here. There was no direct object. Galloped is the verb, but quickly is an adverb describing how the horses galloped. And galloped is an action verb. The last section was distinguishing between nouns that are concrete and abstract. And A was the right answer because warmth is abstract, where fire is concrete. In the subsequent examples, democracy is not concrete, a desk is not abstract, and a donut is not abstract. A class is not abstract. And here we see that an eraser is not abstract, and ice is not abstract. That's why D was the best answer.